Hi friends, new Ansible feature in town. I'm pretty excited to announce you the ansible-policy utility that is able to interact directly with the open-policy agent. If you already know, this is pretty popular in the Kubernetes world, where you can specify some rule written in repo and you can validate your project against this. This is very useful, especially in organizations that would like to validate some policy against your project. As you can see in this example, I'm going to validate my playbook against some policy that establish that I can allocate only AWS EC2 machine in US East 1 and US East 2 region. My playbook is not compliant, as you can see, specify line 15 and 29, just because it's trying to allocate machine in a different area. In this way, we got a not validate and we can proceed with execution. Ever wonder why you didn't heard about Ansible policy? Because it's a new prototype implementation that allow you to define and set the OPA rule inside your Ansible policy. This is the architectural diagram that show you how the interaction is between the Ansible policy engine, the Ansible repo rule, and how you can validate your project. So everything is glued together, relying on the API command by the Ansible policy command line utility that in the end it creates this wonderful tool that gives you a validate or not validate result. How to install the Ansible policy command? Well, first of all, it's very manual installation because it's still experimental, so we need to rely on our Python virtual environment because I don't want to mess it up my system with additional libraries. So let me activate this virtual environment and then started to actually installing the Ansible policy. Is not available in PyPy repository, so I need to install manually, use a pip install -e and specify the current directory. Behind the scene, pip is taking care of downloading all the necessary library, install it and make it work. You might encounter a couple of roadblocks during the installation, especially if you are not satisfied all the dependencies. Let me show you a couple of them. First of all, let me deactivate the virtual environment and reactivate, so I am able to use the Ansible policy command line utility now. So let me source again, VM been activated. Great. Now the Ansible-policy command line is actually available, but if I'm trying to hit the help page, for example, it says that Ansible is not installed. This is pretty common in a virtual environment because most is a fresh installed virtual environment, so we need to use a pip install to actually fulfill this dependency. So great, now we have Ansible. Another important dependency is actually the open policy agent that must be installed on your machine. Let me show you how. Again, we need to deactivate the current virtual environment and reactivate. If it's not installed the open policy agent in our machine, the OPA command is not available and we got this error on the screen. Do you already know the open policy agent? This is pretty famous because it's policy-based control for cloud-native environments. It's flexible, fine-grained control for administrator across the stack. It's very interesting because it relies on a standard context-aware, expressive, and portable language that is called as repo, and it connects together a lot of different domains. So it's pretty interesting and a great open source framework. Impressive. On macOS is available throughout the Homebrew package manager, so I just need to say brew install OPA and everything will come to life. Okay, so good. Now, am I able to use the Ansible policy command? Well, there are some strange exceptions if you just invoke without any parameter, so make sure that all the time you specify, for example, a --help or the right parameter option in order to use this wonderful tool. Great! Now we are ready to start, and the sky is the limit. As you can see, there are plenty of options. The most interesting, in my opinion, are the config that specify the configuration, like ansible.config, the obviously project div that specify the target directory, and you can also specify the policy directory. So these three options are the most important in any case. Now, ansible-policy is currently installed on my machine. I can refer back to the GitHub repository and take a look over on a couple of examples. Here is the configuration file and, for example, a playbook that is not validated that specifies some packages that are listed below the region in my AWS instance, and some examples, some policy. These are policy book that we can take a look together. They are typed in YAML language, so pretty easy to understand, and they specify like a target, condition, and action. In this case, let's specify that the Ansible built-in package module need to consent only some allowed packages, in my case MySQL-server. So I was crafting a couple of examples, just simplify a little bit. This is an example that I used in the beginning of a lesson with amazon.aws.ac2_instance that specify a region. In this case, the region is assigned by a variable that is your AWS region. But if you can take a closer look, this is actually the policy book that specify which region are allowed. In my case, only US East 1 and US East 2. And if we execute again the code in the beginning of our lesson, we got an error just because this code is not running on the region that we were expecting of. Now, the sky is the limit. I can't wait to hear your automation stories and your use case using the policy book. Let's automate more.